You've possibly seen this viral photograph. Until 2 days ago, no one seemed to know who this man was. Memes galore on his selfie with Shah Rukh Khan's son, Aryan Khan, while the latter was in the custody of the Narcotics Control Bureau. Now, we know he is Kiran Gosavi, believed to be a private investigator. We also know of BJP worker Manish Bhanushali, who was involved in some way with Aryan Khan's arrest. Why am I showing you all of this? Well, because the story of SRK's son, Aryan Khan, has now morphed into something else. One, the alleged involvement of two private persons in a raid by a central agency. Number two, a substantially larger drug bust at a Gujarat port vanishing from the news cycle. And number three, the legal context that makes this otherwise Bollywood and drug story important to you as a citizen. These are some of the things I'm going to touch upon in this video. My name is Anubha Bhonsle, and this is the newsworthy version of the Aryan Khan arrest story. Now, the NCB admitted before a Mumbai court on the 4th of October that no illegal drugs were recovered from Aryan Khan. They say they have incriminating messages from his phone which hint at the involvement of an international cartel trafficking drugs into India. A routine probe by the NCB in some ways, some would say, and yet it is far from it. The Nationalist Congress Party, the NCP, has shared two videos showing Manish Bhanushali and Kiran Gosavi entering and exiting the NCB building the night the raid was conducted. In one video, Mr. Bhanushali is seen escorting Arbaz Merchant, one of those arrested from the party, to the NCB's offices. The Narcotics Control Bureau says that Mr. Bhanushali and Mr. Gosavi were present as witnesses before and after the raid. Now, this could have been enough of an explanation if everything added up, but it doesn't. In media interviews, a very candid Mr. Bhanushali says that yes, he's a loyal BJP worker but holds no official position. His Facebook profile has numerous pictures of him with senior BJP leaders, and yes, that's not a crime. He claims he wasn't acting on anyone's orders. He received information about the party and passed it on to the Narcotics Control Bureau, which then asked him to be present as a witness and help out. The visual of him escorting Arbaz Merchant after the arrest, he says, is being misinterpreted. Here's the picture, you can decide. Mr. Gosavi, on the other hand, hasn't spoken yet, but there is a 2018 Pune Mirror report which describes him as a Mumbai-based trickster who allegedly duped at least 6 people of lakhs on the false promises of a job in foreign countries. Reports suggest that the Pune police is now looking for Mr. Gosavi after his moment of internet fame. What is clear that Mr. Gosavi is now supposedly working with the NCB in a high-profile drug bust case as a witness. It would be a tad remiss to not point out that the NCP's Nawab Malik, who's been sharing all these videos and calling the raid fake, also has a Narcotics Control Bureau connect or a disconnect. His son-in-law was arrested by the NCB earlier this year and is currently out on bail.
For some of you, the first response to this story was the celebrity status and how the law must catch up with all, irrespective of who violates it. Something Sameer Vakhere, the NCB's zonal director, also concurs with. But it does call for a slightly in-depth understanding of the NDPS Act, the Narcotics, Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act, the act under which Aryan Khan and others have been charged and arrested. What stands out in this 1985 law is that it's one of the few laws in our country that reverses the burden of proof. That is, the accused has to prove they were not breaking the law, as opposed to the other laws in which the prosecution has to prove that the other party is guilty. The NDPS Act also criminalizes the consumption of all drugs without saying at what stage it can be said that drugs have been consumed. So, the mere presence of drugs around someone can be construed as having had consumed them. Legal experts say that this is a loophole that gets law enforcement going after users instead of big dealers or distributors, which are harder cases to crack. 91% of those charged for personal consumption are usually convicted, and it usually ends with jail time or fines. In India, 59% of those arrested under the NDPS in 2018 were charged with possession for personal use. And in Mumbai, where the current story is playing out, in 2017 and 2018, around 9,700 and 12,900 cases of consumption were registered, but the cases of large-scale trafficking did not even cross 300 in either year. The third thing about the NDPS Act is that it defines the quantum of punishment depending on the quantity of drugs involved. The NCB's recovery in the Aryan Khan case is defined as a small amount of drugs by this law, with a maximum jail time of 1 year and an option for the convicted person to volunteer at a rehab center. In contrast, when 10 days ago anti-smuggling officials seized a record high 2,988 kilograms of heroin, reportedly worth around rupees 21,000 crore at Gujarat's Mundra port, that was a major haul. The drugs were imported as talc stones by a Vijayawada-based company from Iran via Afghanistan. The owners and 6 others have been arrested, but it would speak to common sense, the possibility of bigger names involved in the import of a consignment of this size and value. Last week, a special NDPS court in Gujarat directed the Directorate of Revenue Intelligence to investigate if the Mundra Adani port, its management and its authority had gained any benefits. There has been no development, except that the National Investigation Agency has now taken over the probe. And the story has all but disappeared from the news cycle.
Now, this comparison with the Mundra case is not to say Aryan Khan should not have been arrested, etc. Both cases involve alleged drug use, punishable under the current law. They have to be investigated. But look at the quantum, look at the sequence of events. It is important to point out for both as journalists who report and as people who consume this news. What we pay attention to, what is amplified, and what slips away from our attention. Now, from where we stand as an independent media outfit, no lessons in a sense have been learned from the relentless, ugly, and cruel coverage of Rhea Chakraborty's arrest last year. She was among the 19 people arrested by the NCB based on an FIR that aimed to uproot the drug cartel in Mumbai, especially Bollywood. Deepika Padukone, Sara Ali Khan, Shraddha Kapoor and many other Bollywood celebrities were questioned based on WhatsApp chats. Rhea was in jail for 28 days before she was granted bail. The legacy media had a field day reading out her personal chats and insinuating everything about her relationship with Sushant Singh Rajput, who died by suicide. 1 year on, no drug cartel in Bollywood has come to light. No big dealers have been put behind bars. Mostly, celebrities were called for questioning. What got left out then is a conversation perhaps about mental health and suicide. What got left out then were perhaps COVID-19 numbers. September 2020 was the worst month for India up till that point in the pandemic. India had registered the highest number of deaths in a month then. What gets left out now? Well, a story of a massive amount of hard drugs coming into India from Afghanistan, where the Taliban has taken control, into a major Gujarat port that is privately managed. Conversation perhaps about reforming the NDPS Act, the violence in Lakhimpur Kheri, proposed amendments to the Forest Act, all of which should trump reports or what Aryan Khan ate while in NCB custody when it comes to public interest. I'm hoping you'd agree. My name is Anubha Bhonsle. This is Newsworthy. If this has been worthy of your time, your attention, your mental health, do consider making a contribution to help us do more such work. The link for that is in the bio or in the description, depending on where you're watching us. We'll see you again very soon.